Trey Mancini started out the season with a great feel-good backdrop, having beaten cancer and come back to play, and he's playing at a really high level. So now it's just Trey Mancini, the baseball player, and the force he's been for the Orioles. He's driven in a run in 6 in a row. He's homered in back-to-back games. And Bill Ripken has noticed some things about Trey Mancini that merit some special attention here today.
Well, I tell you, when I see him, first of all, he's a big, tall guy, listed at 6'3". I think he might even be a little bit taller than that. And there's a little bit of a violent top-hand swing type that he has. It reminded me of another guy that was pretty tall, used to play in Baltimore. Let's take a look at what my bro did, too, with Trey Mancini and Junior side by side. But first of all, watch this swing. There's a little bit different of an act and path from this guy. I think he's more right-hand dominant as he's hitting the balls out of the ballpark, and it takes me back. That's my bro opening day. That's Junior in one of his stances. That's Junior in another stance. That one looked more normal. There's his crouch stance, another crouch stance. But when you watch this swing, and I'm not necessarily looking at the stance of the setup, but the swing through the zone by Trey Mancini, and that was Junior's last All-Star game in Seattle, where he was really in a crouch. But look at him side by side. Just watch the swings as they come through. There's a violent top hand, I think, that comes into play here that's very similar. It's not a cookie-cutter approach, and I don't think it's like too many other guys maybe on their team, but it just goes to show you there's probably more than one way to do things in this game of baseball for sure. And I told you a little story, too, when I showed you the Junior home run on opening day.
Yeah.
3 for 5 opening day his rookie year.
Okay.
4 for 55 after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So 7 for 60, I believe, is what it was, or 3 for something like that. But bad start.
Okay.
And the difference between yesteryear's managers having some power, one was named Earl Weaver. And a lot of people wanted Junior to go back to Rochester. This kid ain't ready. And Earl said, no, this kid will be ready. And then he won Rookie of the Year the rest of that year, and then he won the MVP the next year, and they won the World Series. But Earl went to bat for him, no pun intended.
You know, your brother, you know better than anybody, was known as a man of 1,000 stances, who would change his stance not only game to game, at bat to at bat, but sometimes pitch to pitch. Do you see that from Mancini, or are you only making a comp with that top hand?
I'm just going with the hands of their swing. Once they start to let the big dog eat, I think there's a lot of comparisons. You know, Junior went through so many different ones. Blast from the past, he used to call one of them the Don Walkenfuss. He would stand with his feet this close together, and Walk used to bring his toe around this way. Junior had one where he was doing the violin before he would hit. That's what he called the violin.
I remember that one.
He did one day in the offseason where he stood this close to home plate, and I'm throwing BP to him, and he's like all out here. He goes, how's it look? And I'm like thinking, ridiculous, but it looks good. How do you like it? And then you saw the one in Seattle in the All-Star game. He was in his crouch,
yeah,
and his hands were very much in this position.
Chris Hoyles-ish.
Yeah, but Junior's idea was a starting point, is it did not matter to him. If he won the MVP like he did in 1983, kind of standing in this position, very tall, not much bend at all. 1991, he won the MVP in this position, crouched. You marry up a homer from 1983 and 1991, and it would have been identical.
Same,
anyway.
Really. It was where you finish, not where you start.
Right, because Junior, the only thing the stance was a starting point. If he could see the ball, he felt okay. And he wasn't afraid to experiment with some things to kind of kickstart him. Because let's face it, he played 4 million games in a row. He might have got a little bored with himself from time to time. But if he felt not so good at home plate, and he tinkered with something in BP, like maybe the violin or another one that he had one time, he was doing a little bit of the Mickey Tettleton, but he was going this way. Mick just left it there.
Yeah.
But Junior was doing this, and the only reason he was doing that was to remind himself in the game, I've got some hands. I'm going to use my hands.
Well, let's circle it back to the Mancini discussion here, because true or false, most handsy hitters aren't power hitters. Most.
You know, but there are some that I think of Trey when I see that swing and that finish. You can see how his right hand's on top. If I go back into my time, Junior was certainly one of them. Joe Carter was another one.
Yeah.
Joe Carter could stand in the batter's box here and the slider's over there on this side. And some people with more of the traditional to-it approach, they say you have to hit that ball to that way. No, Joe and Junior, my bro, stayed on it so much that they went down here and kind of threw it this way. I've seen too many of those guys take breaking balls out there and go that way into the seats because they stayed on it and they were top hand strong. So maybe.
See, because what I think of from a fan standpoint, when you say handsy hitter, I think of Tony Gwynn.
Sure.
I think of Carew flipping a base hit the other way. That's what I think of. I think of power hitters as being explosive hitters,
right.
Hips and hands, the Ted Williams stuff. But, you know, you lay out a pretty compelling case as to the power hitters that use their hands more often. It's just, as fans, we don't associate that as much.
You know, the cool thing, too, when you mention Gwynn, you mentioned, Boggsy was in that mix right there, too. Ichiro's in that mix, Rod Carew. They were actually looking like they were playing pepper in a game. You know, the signs out here, no pepper allowed. You can't play pepper because you don't want to mess up the grass. But they would actually truly hit the ball where it was pitched. And they didn't really look like they tried to do too much. So in this day and age, when we're trying to measure the exit velocity, can't imagine what Tony Gwynn's was forever.
Yeah, he didn't care either.
He had a lot of soft line drives over there.
Right.
Over the shortstop's head. What was it? It was a knock. It's another biscuit on board. Probably Pete Rose wouldn't jump up there in that category either. But what they could do was they took what the pitcher gave you. And if it was 2 strikes and Pete Rose is up there and the lefty threw him a fastball away over there and he's hitting right-handed, he wouldn't have a problem hitting a line drive over that way playing pepper.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get it by somebody at 100 feet, it's a knock. So the handsy guys like Carew, Gwynn, it really did look like they were just
Yeah, but then your cumulative exit velocity is not very good, and
I'll take a knock.
No one's going to want you.
I'll take a broken bat knock over a rocket out any day.
We agree on all that for sure.